Morning, everybody. For those of you who celebrate Easter, happy Easter. And today's virtue of the day is gratitude. And as we all know, I like to talk about cliches sometimes, and cliches become so for a reason because they make so much sense to so many people for so long that they become cliche. So gratitude is cliche these days, and your gratitude, making your gratitude lists and focusing on what you're grateful for. But it's cliche for a reason. It is what my teacher would call the master key, and gratitude is the master key to opening the heart to a wonderful life. And when we consider gratitude, we consider what we're grateful for, and we consider the law that what we focus on grows, what we focus on, we become. What we focus on, we notice more. What we notice more, we express, we experience, we feel, we share. Well, gratitude is the state of already having the abundance and the beauty and the love and the joy that you want. And so when we are putting our nervous system in a state of that abundance, of that gratitude, then again, not to get too cliche or too new agey, but there is something to the law of attraction stuff where there's a fundamental state of kind of positiveness that our being can be in, and there's a state of negative that we can be in. And really, like attracts like in the universe. Like does attract like, that is true. And so if we are in a state of wanting and oh, I wish I had, and I want this, and I need this, and I want that, then we're in a state of deprivation, longing, we're in a state of deprivation. And so when we are in a state of gratitude, we are in a positive state of already having love and joy and beauty and all the things that we want in our life. And therefore, the irony is that we attract more of it. And so moving away from that little bit of love and light, which maybe sometimes seems unrealistic or off-putting to people, here's the reality. I was reading an article yesterday. This is a practical truth. This is a psychotherapy tool that I'm sharing with you today. I often find myself telling my clients that I work with one-on-one, and I will preface things by saying, look, I got to tell you the truth. I got to keep it real with you here, because I feel like although there are some very positive things about maybe political correctness or trying to sugarcoat things, or, I read an article yesterday. It was on the wall of a friend of my wife and in Facebook, and it was written by a PhD. It was in Forbes. And so it's, a relatively big deal, relatively this person seems to have a regular column. And I can certainly understand what this person is doing. They're trying to give someone a practice that doesn't seem too intimidating. So they're talking about something that I talk about a lot, which is the negativity bias of the brain, the negativity bias of the survival mechanism part of our brain, how it filters for, focuses on, looks for danger, looks for that which is negative. So in order to help us survive, the reason being is that this part of our brain that wants us to survive absolutely does not care about us being happy. It only cares about our survival. And it reasons that if it can focus on the negative, if it can focus on what is dangerous, if it can keep that all in mind, then we have a better chance of staying alive. Well, maybe, because ironically, that evolved during a time when we maybe needed to be a little bit more vigilant. There maybe were saber-toothed tigers, around the corner, and we needed to have our head on a swivel a little bit more. And now most of us are in pretty safe conditions on a day-to-day basis, and activating that negative survival mode over and over and over and over again is actually ironically killing us more quickly, because it dampens our immune system. It keeps us it keeps us in a state of hyper arousal that actually has tons of negative health ramifications, physical, mental, emotional, although I also believe that they are all the same thing, different ways of expressing the same thing or talking about the same thing. So, again, coming back to my point, I often tell people, she's giving a practice in this article that says, focus on a few things that you're grateful for a few times a day. And that's great, because usually I hear once a day or maybe twice a day. And she's saying 3 times a day. And that's awesome, actually. That 3 pattern is really good. But even still, here's the deal. If you have a habit, as most people do, of being in the survival mode 95% of the time, 98% of the time, some neuroscientists will say we think 40 to 60,000 thoughts a day. I don't know where they come up with that number. I don't know if it's exactly true, but the point is it's a lot. And so every single habit becomes a habit because we do it often enough, with enough frequency, intensity, and duration. If we are in kind of that state of negativity, as most of us are on a regular basis, if we are in the state of fear, anxiety, worry, anger, frustration, impatience, criticism, doubt, hopelessness, helplessness, lethargy, fatigue, the fight, flight, freeze system, or just a generally kind of agitated, well, those 40 to 60,000 thoughts, most of those 40 to 60,000 thoughts are the same 40 to 60,000 thoughts that we thought yesterday, and they're the same 40 to 60,000 thoughts that we thought the day before, and they're probably the similar 40 to 60,000 thoughts we've been thinking for a number of years. And when you think about that adding up, that frequency, intensity, and duration is very powerful, and it's not going to be overcome by thinking a few positive thoughts a couple times a day. This is where the positive thought movement doesn't quite grasp the commitment and the dedication and the consistency that it takes. And so one of my favorite authors is Dr. Joe Dispenza. And he's right in there with some of that new age crowd that I get a little bit allergic to. And that's my own personal judgments. But what he teaches is actually really solid and really, he tells the truth about the work and the commitment that is required and how much it's worth it. And so one of the things is that in his book, You Are the Placebo, he discusses how he went around the world and studied people that had quote unquote miraculous healings or spontaneous remissions. And he had numerous case study after case study after case study, and he took all this information and what he recognized is that there was actually a pattern, that these things weren't necessarily happening by accident, that there was some common similar traits to not only how these people lived their lives and how they worked with whatever disease that they were working with, but also the moment when they quote unquote had this miraculous healing or this spontaneous remission, which basically meant one minute they had something, the next that they didn't, and the doctors couldn't explain why. Well, what he recognizes that there were traits, and there were about 5 of them, if I remember correctly from the book. I read it a few years ago, but the one common trait that was the most powerful factor in that is that every single one of those people came to a place where they were so grateful for their life. They were so happy. They were so in love with life that they didn't care whether or not they had their condition. They were so take it or leave it. It doesn't matter. I am so in love with life. I am so grateful for every breath that I take that I'm happy. I'm happy. Cancer or no cancer, trauma or no trauma, I'm happy. And that is because it became their default mode. And so it became their default mode through frequency, intensity, and duration, through repetition, through commitment, through dedication, through the willingness to say, even if, aside from, and especially because bad stuff happens, I choose to be wholehearted, especially when it's hard. It's easy to be grateful when the birds are chirping, the sun is shining, there's a pot of coffee brewing, and all is right in the world. The work is, how can I be grateful even when things are rough, even when things are tough? How can I, instead of having those 40 to 60,000 of thoughts a day, be dominated by my past, which is what most of us are doing? We are habitually reacting to the past and thinking, feeling, and acting in the same ways we have in the past, versus how can I be oriented towards the future that I want to create? And if I want to orient towards the future that I want to create, there is no better way to create it than to already invoke it in the present moment. And there is no better way to do that than to be grateful for what you value and choose in the future now. And that is the master key, and that is how we work it. Hope you have a wonderful day of gratitude. And again, for those of you that celebrate that in the world, happy Easter. My prayer to all of you, I'm in a bit of a cheeky mood today. My prayer to all of the Christians in the world is that they truly, truly, truly focus upon the unconditional love that was Jesus' main pivotal teaching. And they truly rise up from within the church and speak out against prejudice, against bigotry, against closed-mindedness, against hatred, against everything that Jesus would have flipped over tables about. So, unconditional love really means unconditional. It means unconditional. It doesn't mean I can choose to not love gay people. It doesn't mean I can choose to not love brown people or immigrants. It's unconditional. Okay? So, love you all, literally all of you. Because guess what? That also means I can't choose to not love Donald Trump either. Love is unconditional, or else it's not love. Grateful for you all, love you all, and have a wonderful day.